You are a monster. Like all of us, you have a minotaur in you. The minotaur is a scary beast who sleeps deep inside you. If you are not aware of him, if you don't control him, he can awaken at any moment, possess you, and destroy everything you love. Who is the Minotaur? Where does he come from? The Minotaur is a monster from Greek mythology who is half man and half bull and eats the human flesh of young sacrificial victims every 7 years. In the 1885 painting by painter George Frederick Watts called The Minotaur, we can see the ugly silhouette of the monster as he waits for his victims to arrive. In Watts's painting, the Minotaur is seen half from behind, looking out over the sea behind a parapet in yellow sunlight. The monster is depicted as a red, muscular figure with a bull's head, hoof-like fists, and a tail, with a gaze oozing of sick impatience. According to the myth, the Minotaur lived on the island of Crete, and the mainland Athenians were compelled to regularly ship 7 of their young men and 7 virgin girls for him to eat. The painting shows the Minotaur as he waits for the ship to arrive. One of his fists leans on the parapet and holds a small crushed bird, which symbolizes youthful innocence and purity. Watts said at the first exhibition of the Minotaur that he wanted to hold up to detestation the bestial and brutal. Why did Watts choose the Minotaur as the quintessential example of the bestial and brutal, as the archetype of monstrosity? Minos was a king of Crete, son of Zeus and Europa. The birth story of Minos was that Zeus was enamored of Europa and decided to seduce or rape her, the two being near equivalent in Greek myth. He transformed himself into a tame white bull and mixed in with her father's herds. While Europa and her helpers were gathering flowers, she saw the bull, caressed his flanks, and eventually got onto his back. Zeus took that opportunity and ran to the sea and swam, with her on his back, to the island of Crete. He then revealed his true identity. Europa became the first queen of Crete and gave birth to Minos. Minos later became king of Crete. In order to confirm his right to rule, rather than any of his brothers, he prayed that Poseidon send him a snow-white bull as a sign. Poseidon sent Minos the bull, with the understanding that the bull would be sacrificed to the god. Deciding that Poseidon's bull was too fine of a specimen to kill, Minos sent the bull to his herds and substituted another inferior bull for sacrifice. Enraged, Poseidon asked the goddess Aphrodite to curse Pasiphae, the wife of Minos, causing her to fall in love with the bull. She subsequently gave birth to the half-man, half-bull Minotaur, whose real name was Asterion. Following the birth of the Minotaur, King Minos visited the Oracle of Delphi to ask for advice. She told him he was to construct the labyrinth to hold the Minotaur, as he would grow into a powerful and violent beast. Minos then had his architect Daedalus construct the labyrinth, an elaborate, confusing structure designed to hold the Minotaur. Daedalus had so cunningly made the labyrinth that he could barely escape it after he built it. Over time, the Minotaur became a useful tool for Minos to cause fear and spread his power. Pasiphae, the wife of King Minos, had several children from him. The eldest of these, Androgeus, went to Athens to take part in the Panathenaic Games, which were held there every 4 years. Being strong and skillful, he did very well, winning some events outright. He soon became a crowd favourite, much to the resentment of the Palantides, who were the 50 sons of Pallas, younger brother of Aegeus, king of Athens. The Palantides assassinated Androgeus, incurring the wrath of his father, King Minos. When King Minos heard what happened to his son, he ordered the Cretan fleet to set sail for Athens. Minos asked the Athenian king Aegeus for his son's assassins, saying that if they were to be handed to him, the city would be spared. However, not knowing who the assassins were, King Aegeus surrendered the whole city to Minos' mercy. King Minos ordered that at the end of every great year, which occurred after every 7 cycles on the solar calendar, the 7 most courageous youths and the 7 most beautiful maidens would board a boat and be sent as tribute to Crete to be devoured by the Minotaur. On the 3rd occasion of these sacrifices, the hero Theseus, son of both King Aegeus and Poseidon, and of Princess Aethra, volunteered to stop this horror. He took the place of one of the youths and set off with a black sail, promising to his father Aegeus that if successful, he would return with a white sail. Like the others, Theseus was stripped of his weapons when they sailed. On his arrival in Crete, Ariadne, King Minos' daughter, fell in love with Theseus and on the advice of Daedalus gave him a ball of thread so he could find his way out of the labyrinth. That night, Ariadne escorted Theseus to the labyrinth, and Theseus promised that if he returned from the labyrinth, he would take Ariadne with him. As soon as Theseus entered the labyrinth, he tied one end of the ball of string to the doorpost and brandished his sword, which he had kept hidden from the guards inside his tunic. Theseus came to the heart of the labyrinth, and upon the sleeping Minotaur, the beast awoke, and a tremendous fight occurred. Theseus overpowered the Minotaur with his strength and stabbed the beast in the throat with his sword. After decapitating the beast, Theseus used the string to escape the labyrinth and managed to escape with all of the young Athenians and Ariadne. Then he and the rest of the crew fell asleep on the beach of the island of Naxos, where they stopped on their way back, looking for water. Theseus then abandoned Ariadne, where the god Dionysus eventually found and married her. Theseus forgot to put up the white sails instead of the black ones, so his father, the king, believing he was dead, died by suicide, throwing himself off a cliff of Sunion and into the sea, causing this body of water to be named the Aegean Sea. The story of the Minotaur, like many stories of Greek mythology, influenced countless generations of European artists and thinkers. One of these artists is the renowned Spanish painter Pablo Picasso. Most people see Picasso as this jovial, grandfather-like figure of artistic genius. But few know about Picasso the Minotaur. Picasso was fascinated with the Minotaur theme and loved wearing bull masks. He identified himself with the monster, with both its human and animal principle, stuck in a maze, hidden from sunlight, hidden from mankind. Like a modern Minotaur, Picasso saw himself as an unstoppable primordial force of nature, a superhuman being. He once said, "My mother told me, if you become a soldier, you'll be a general. If you become a monk, you'll end up as the Pope." Instead, I wanted to be a painter, and I became Picasso. He also said, "What is terrible is that one is one's own Prometheus's eagle, both the devourer and the devoured." Prometheus is best known for defying the Olympian gods by stealing fire from them and giving it to humanity in the form of technology, knowledge, and more generally, civilization. Zeus, king of the Olympian gods, condemned Prometheus to eternal torment for his transgression. Prometheus was bound to a rock, and an eagle, the emblem of Zeus, was sent to eat his liver. His liver would then grow back overnight, only to be eaten again the next day in an ongoing cycle. If Picasso saw himself as a devouring eagle, who was he devouring? To discover that, we have to dive into Picasso's diary. Picasso wrote that painting is just another way of keeping a diary. So what was he putting in his diary? In his diary, he was putting his obsessions, and in particular, his obsessions with women and their bodies, because Picasso was devouring the women around him. Picasso identified with the Minotaur because he saw himself as the monster who was being offered fresh young girls and women to consume at his leisure indefinitely. This was the case, for example, with Marie-Thérèse Walter. Marie-Thérèse Walter was 17 years old when she started her relationship with Picasso. He was 45 and married to his first wife, Olga Koklova. On the 8th of January 1927, Walter first met Picasso in front of the Galeries Lafayette in Paris. Picasso approached her and said, "You have an interesting face. I would like to do a portrait of you. I am Picasso." Walter was unfamiliar with his name but was flattered by the attention. The relationship began after Picasso invited Walter to visit his studio 3 days later, which was situated on the floor above his apartment, where he was living with his wife. He studied her face and body and invited her to return the next day. The visits continued daily, causing Walter to tell her mother that she had a job. Walter reinvigorated Picasso's artwork. He began to draw her portrait repeatedly, inspired by her fresh, athletic appearance, curves, and oval face. She said, "He told me that I had saved his life, but I had no idea what he meant." A week after they first met, they were in a sexual relationship. She was manipulated, violated, and kept under secrecy by a man who could have been her father. She was subjected to all kinds of degrading practices. Picasso used to say to Marie-Thérèse Walter, "Even if it's wrong, even if you think it's wrong, even if it hurts, it's love, the purest kind." Marie-Thérèse Walter said on the radio regarding the work she did as a model posing for Picasso, "Picasso rapes the woman first, like Renoir, and then we work." Rape was a prevalent theme in Picasso's work, especially through the figure of the Minotaur, presented on his canvases as an alter ego. By the time he had a daughter with Marie-Thérèse Walter, Picasso had already been seeing several other women. Several months after the birth of his daughter Maya, he began a relationship with Dora Maar, and the Minotaur got his hands on his new victim. Dora Maar was a French photographer, painter, and poet. She was talented, politically active, and independent. In 1935, Maar was introduced to Pablo Picasso and became his companion and muse. Maar boosted Picasso's understanding of politics and taught him skills in photography. Maar photographed the successive stages of the creation of Guernica, painted by Picasso in his studio in 1937. Picasso used these photographs in his creative process. She became Picasso's main model, and very soon he started representing her in tears. He was brutal with her, treated her with sadistic cruelty, and broke her mentally. He physically abused her and made her fight Marie-Thérèse Walter for his attention. In the majority of Picasso's paintings of Dora Maar, she was represented as a tortured, anguished woman. The most well-known of these portraits is the Weeping Woman. In Sophie Chauvel's book, Picasso, The Gaze of the Minotaur, she wrote, quote, "His cruelty towards her is limitless. Abandoned, scorned, slapped repeatedly. He can leave her unconscious on the floor after a fit of rage during which he struck her without any consideration. Numerous witnesses confirm that he beats Dora more than Olga and Marie-Thérèse. But his physical cruelty is nothing compared to the other. His game is to find where, psychologically, it hurts the most." End quote. Until he transforms her from a goddess into a doormat, in accordance with his binary vision of women. Goddesses or doumarts. Sophie Chauvel writes again, quote, "Depending on the audience, he may even boast of raping or beating them, a sure sign of his virility and his freedom. Brutal in bed, and not just in bed, Marie-Thérèse testifies to this, and the look of the Minotaur raping his prey confirms it. Who the hell has the power? Furious at having allowed himself to be seduced, there always comes a moment when he makes them pay. He can get away with anything. He is Picasso." End quote. He is the Minotaur. But even the Minotaur fears death, which doesn't care about who you are. Picasso uttered, "The older you get, the stronger the wind gets, and it's always in your face." As he grew old, impotent, and weaker, Picasso plotted to keep the pain going even after his death. His master plan: after me, the flood. No one should be spared. His grandson Pablito was prevented from attending his grandfather's funeral. He was threatened with dogs. The humiliated and inconsolable Pablito ended up killing himself by drinking bleach. Pablito's father, Picasso's son Paulo, passed away 2 years later from cancer. Marie-Thérèse Walter was found hanged. Jacqueline, Picasso's last wife, committed suicide with a gunshot to the head. And Dora Maar, after becoming a nun, allowed herself to die in misery amidst priceless artworks she refused to part with, seeking to keep the presence of the man she idolized close to her. The enduring presence of the Minotaur in the minds and works of major artists like Picasso hints at deeper meanings of this mythological figure. Deeper, darker meanings. First, sexuality and repression. In some interpretations, the Minotaur's conception, involving the union of a bull and Queen Pasiphae, can be seen as a symbol of taboo and repression. He relates to the consequences of forbidden desires and the complexities of human relationships. Duality and conflict. The Minotaur's dual nature, half human and half bull, represents the duality of human existence, the constant conflict between our civilized and animalistic nature. It embodies the struggle between reason and emotion, intellect and instinct, between man and nature. The Minotaur's monstrous form serves as a reminder of the potential for chaos and destruction that lies within us. Its hybrid form represents the combination of human intelligence with the primal and instinctual nature of a beast. In this sense, he can be seen as a reflection of the darker, more savage side of humanity. Primal fear and the unconscious. The Minotaur's powerful and hideous appearance and confinement in the labyrinth represent the dark and irrational aspects of the human psyche, the primal fears and desires that we often try to suppress. He symbolizes the untamed instincts and hidden passions that lurk within our subconscious minds. Labyrinth and complexity. The Minotaur is famously associated with the labyrinth built by Daedalus, where he was confined. The labyrinth is a complex and confusing structure where you can get lost and die. It symbolizes the challenges and uncertainties of life and the unfathomable, dreadful depths of our minds. The journey into the labyrinth, as undertaken by characters like Theseus, can be seen as a metaphor for the quest for self-discovery into the unknown self. Sacrifice and loss. The Athenian youth's sacrifice to the Minotaur represent the loss of innocence and the painful sacrifices we make in life. Their tragic fate highlights the harsh realities of the world and the difficult choices we face. This can be interpreted as a symbolic representation of the sacrifices made by society to appease or confront its darker elements. Mortality and death. The Minotaur's inescapable confinement in the labyrinth and its eventual demise at the hands of Theseus illustrates the inevitability of death and the limitations of human beings, no matter how powerful they can become. It serves as a reminder of our mortality and the ephemeral nature of life. If the figure of the Minotaur has incredibly dark underpinnings, there's a silver lining still. Theseus' defeat of the Minotaur and his escape from the labyrinth symbolize the human capacity to overcome challenges, confront our fears, and achieve triumph over adversity. It represents the power of courage, determination, and perseverance. This can symbolize our constant struggle to overcome internal and external challenges, facing and conquering the monsters within and without. The monster is inside us, in the labyrinth of our minds, but we have the power of keeping him there locked. Will we?